The year is 2006, and the popular manga called Death Note just got its anime debut, and shortly after it became one of the biggest anime and manga for quite a while. Even nowadays it's still one of the most popular ones, most because it's great, if we ignore the wacky second half of it, which isn't even that bad in the manga. It's one of those anime that you could even recommend to your parents who enjoy watching CSI Miami or New York on TV. So what do you do as a big video game company who wanted something fresh for one of their most beloved video game franchises? You hire Takeshi Obata, the artist behind Death Note, because of its immense popularity and his artistic skills. It has a very recognizable art style, so everyone who sees the cover of your game will go, "Wow, that looks like Death Note, I gotta get that game." That's probably what Konami thought when they made Castlevania Judgment a 3D arena fighter for the Wii. Konami got A-Ting to develop the game, which were used to developing anime fighters, some 3D and some 2D. They made 7 Bleach Heat the Soul games in just 5 years. How? A bunch of Naruto games, Tatsunoko vs Capcom, and so on. Since I'm a furry, no, actually I'm not a furry, I also gotta mention they made the Bloody War games, a fighting game series where humans turn into animals and beat the shit out of each other, and it looks actually really cool. I wanna play those one day. But they also made one of my favorite games of all time, which isn't a fighting game at all. It's the farthest thing away from a fighting game as possible. It's a puzzle game, Kururin Squash, a game where you control a blue bird. Is that a Naruto reference? Wow. In a helicopter thingy and have to avoid hitting the walls. Really underrated series, and I wish they would make a new one. Please Nintendo, they somehow co-develop Pikmin 4 with you. Give them some money so they can make a new Kururin game that will become a million seller, because that's what it deserves. You can play the game in 3 ways, with the Wiimote or Nunchuck classic controller and even the GameCube controller, which I picked first because the thought of playing a fighting game with some added motion controls made me feel dizzy, and I'm also a big hater of the Wii classic controller. It just feels bad, and I have extremely small hands and it already feels bad in my hands, so I don't even want to think about how badly it must feel like in bigger hands. Never had a classic controller Pro though, those are probably better, I would hope. I wish someone would envelop my small delicate hands in their big strong hands and tell me everything is going to be okay. The Wiimote plus Nunchuck combo is okay, it works for what it is, but you gotta shake it to do attacks while pressing other buttons, and the Nunchuck has to be shook to evade, and it gets a bit tiring after a bit and makes you wish to just play it with a normal controller instead, which I did. My beloved GameCube controller, I love you. Did anyone else ever try sticking a Wiimote up the ass, or was it just me? Nobody else? Alright. You got a standard combo where you mash the B button, which most of the time also makes the enemy bounce off the ground, which means you can press the R combo now to also chain an air combo onto the normal combo and end it by pressing the Y button by finishing the combo with a sub weapon if you got one. Sounds maybe a bit complicated saying it like this, but the first time you do it, it just clicks right off the bat. The R button makes you jump, which gives you different attacks in the air, and the L button makes you block, which is breakable either through attacking a lot or pressing L plus B to unleash a guard break attack that will break the enemy's guard, so better dodge with the C stick. Pressing A and B together also does a different attack and also does a different attack while you press those, which can be a problem. It feels there's a bit of a delay when you stop moving, so you actually do the move A plus B attack instead of the normal A plus B attack when you stand still, because your character still moved a tiny little bit even though your stick was not doing anything. You can also hold the A button to charge your attacks, and the same goes for the sub weapons. I think I kinda suck at explaining controls, but it's quite easy to get into the game after doing the tutorial once. It's pretty simple and there's not that much to learn about the controls of the game really. Every time you attack your opponent, you also fill up your special bar at the bottom, and when it's full you can try to activate it and hit your opponent with it, which starts an animation that's cool the first few times, but after you have seen it twice, it just makes you wish you could skip them. And I also think they're too strong. They take over half of your HP, so getting hit by one feels extremely punishing. Hitting them can be a bit tricky since the enemy can just guard or block them, but still. Most fighting games have stuff like that, so don't let your guard down and don't get hit. Unless you fight against Camilla, then getting hit by it is actually a good thing if you're a masochist. Or if Iron Maiden is your favorite band. Around the arena there's also breakable objects that have hearts, weapons or upgrades for the weapons in them. In classic Castlevania style you need hearts to use the weapons, and some of them use just one heart like the knife, but some need more hearts and can also only be used when you charge it up like the time stopwatch. But for example the knife can also be charged up to form multiple knives at once, which obviously also costs more hearts. Like I said earlier, these sub weapons can be weaved into the combos to prolong them, and they can just give you a bit of range when you normally suit it for mini attacks. The stages themselves are okay. There's a few that are just insanely boring, like the Abbey Ruins or the Dimensional Rift, because they have nothing to offer really. But there's also some fun ones with fun gimmicks, like the Torture Chamber, which is exactly what the name tells you it is. It's torture. On one side there's a poison pool, on the other side a bunch of grinding grinders that will grind you to meat, with spikes coming out of the floor all over the arena, and a giant axe going through the middle of the room, and it's almost impossible not to sometimes get hit by some of these things, with how the game goes all over the place sometimes when you try to dodge or do long combos. Then there's also the ghost ship, where a giant squid appears and can hit you, and you can shove your opponents out of the arena to get a ring out, which you can also do at the castle gate stage, where a giant fish just jumps out and destroys part of the bridge to make the arena smaller, and if you don't move away you will get ring outed too. But yeah, the stages are kinda whatever. But what about the characters? Most of the characters actually play fairly different, which is a plus, and can be a bit annoying when you have to use characters you don't really like to play as to unlock other characters, because that's how it was back in the day. You actually had to play the game to get everything the game has to offer. Now if you buy a fighting game, you can just pick any character that is to your liking and enjoy the game like that, which is a good thing. Don't let boomers tell you otherwise. If I ever lose my Smash Ultimate save file and I have to get all characters back by unlocking them, I will just, I don't know, hope that my sleeves get wet and annoy me for a couple of minutes next time I wash my hands. At the start you can decide to either start with Simon or Alucard, and let me tell you, I made a huge mistake by picking Alucard first, because he obviously has his daddy issues like always, which isn't even the annoying part, but you know who the final boss is in his story mode. Do I even have to say it? It's Alucard, but backwards. Predictable. Everyone would guess that, and it's not the bad or annoying thing, it's actually how broken Dracula is when you play the game for your first time ever. He got spammy fireballs, spells that follow you through the whole arena, he can teleport into the air where it's kinda hard to hit him, he guards almost everything, and if you use your guard break attack, most of the time he will just teleport out of it before it even hits, and the camera in his fight goes all over the place because of his teleports, and he's so huge he blocks it. It's a shit show. In comparison to that, when you pick Simon, you go up against Trevor and just totally smash the fuck out of him. So let this be a warning, don't pick Alucard before really getting used to the controls, because you will regret it. Yes, I suck, but you will suck too if you play the game for the first time ever and have to go through Dracula. It has 14 playable characters in the end, when you unlock them all by playing and beating story mode with the different characters. So let's talk about some of the characters, and also let's start with one of the characters I dislike playing as the most, Golem. Golem is a golem, and he's huge. Do you know what that means in a fighting game? Big damage, slow movement. Exactly. And I hate slow movement in a fighting game. I want to go zippy zappy all over the screen and be fast, even if I may don't deal much damage. Playing as Golem against extremely fast enemies like Grant or Cornell felt just so bad, because every time you block and see the animation ending and wanting to attack in that moment to punish them, it takes a bit for you to actually attack, so they quickly raise their guard and block it before you can punish them. Obviously you just break their guard, but hitting that is also difficult against such fast characters, and yeah, skill issue I guess for me. In a stark contrast to that, you get Cornell, the character that felt the most broken to me in a way, but I'm bad at judging characters, especially if you can only play against the CPU. He's fast as fuck boy, can hit like a truck with his combos, and you can also activate Rampage, a power up that lasts for a bit and makes you even faster and hits you like a tank instead of only a truck, even though a tank would mostly just buff you over instead of hitting you unlike a truck. Maybe a bad example. The downside to that is that after it runs out you're stunned, which leaves you open for attacks, but especially the special attacks. Somehow I was really surprised when Maria used her special against me when my Rampage ran out. I did not expect the CPU to be smart enough to abuse it, or maybe Maria is just a really smart girl. Maria is a summoner that can summon the 4 howdy beasts from Chinese mythology. Genbu is a turtle that crushes your enemies, Byaku is an air dash, Tuzaku makes you fly up with fire like a phoenix, and Seiryu makes a tidal wave appear. And she can also do normal attacks. I like playing as her the most because she's cute, and cuteness is all that matters. Another character I also loved playing as was Eric, because he's fast with his lance and just kind of fun to play. And he's a butler boy, and I love those type of characters. Camilla was also fun to play as since she's really fast. You can probably guess what kind of characters were the most fun to play as for me. The fast ones. And I totally did enjoy playing as Camilla for her rather huge assets. When I unlocked Dracula finally, I thought he's gonna be fun with just how OP he is, but he's not really fun to play as. You just spam your spells and you move extremely slow, so you gotta use your dodge button to teleport around, which is no fun at all because of the camera, because he's just way too big for you and the enemy, so he blocks the whole view. And when he jumps, it drains the special meter, but you won't even need the special anyways to win because the CPU just can't handle Dracula. Seems like the kind of character you would really hate having to play against online, so I'm kinda happy these servers are down and I don't have to go through that. The designs, I actually kinda love most of them. They did well to convert the Death Note look into the game, but I can totally see why people dislike them. Starting with Symphony of the Night, Konami started working together a lot with Ayami Kojima. Kojima's and Konami went well during that time, who is responsible for that iconic Castlevania look during that era that you connect with the franchise. And I think if the game tried to emulate her art style, people wouldn't have been so down on it. But trying to emulate a super detailed art style like hers into a video game is hard, especially so back in the day on a Wii. There's a reason why we will probably never get a Final Fantasy game that has Yoshitaka Amano's arts as the graphical style of the game itself. And back in the day, anime was also still looked down upon and didn't get swept into mainstream like nowadays. During that era of consoles, you saw the sentiment of anime look, get that shit away from me as fast as possible a lot. So let's take a quick look at some of the designs. Simon, yeah, they twinkified him a bit, or maybe a bit more than just a bit. It's basically light but jacked with red hair, which he already got in the PlayStation 1 version of Castlevania Chronicles. In the game he's 23 years old, so it makes sense he isn't this older looking muscly guy yet, but I can understand why people would want the iconic Simon instead of Simon Light. But for those people, you luckily got the other Belmont Trevor. He got his muscles, he got an older look, and that's what people would want out of him, right? Probably one of the redesigns that hurt the least for older fans who are not fans of the redesigns. The other two characters from Dracula's Curse are also here, Cypher and Grant. Cypher was a fairly normal looking mage and now looks really elegant and royal in some kind of musketeer look, at least that's what it reminds me of, which I really like. Grant though got probably one of the most extreme makeovers. This is Grant back in the day and this is Grant now. I could see why Grant fans would hate it. I personally think it's pretty neat though. Maria got turned into Misa from Death Note and I absolutely love her design and she kind of retains her older design, but only kind of. But now with twin tails and, you know, a little bit more modern. Camilla normally is kinda like a flying mask or a skull, but here she's a real dominatrix, and if I said what I wanted to do to me, then I think people would deem me crazy, so I won't. She's the fanservice character that every fighting game needed back in the day, basically. Then there's Cornel, who is just cool as fuck and a nice pick for the roster in general. The Nintendo 64 Castlevania games are pretty underrated, and the angry video game nerds video on them was pure bullshit that made people think they are way worse than they actually are, without ever giving them a real chance. He normally is a dude who can turn into a werewolf, but here he's always a werewolf in some cool edgy armor. I love armor like this so much. Then there's Death, who is normally a skeleton reaper dude with a cape, but here he looks more like a Death Note Shinigami, which makes total sense. And Dracula is a total dilf. These were not all of the characters, but the others didn't really stick out too much in comparison to maybe to their other versions, and didn't interest me too much from their designs to begin with. The game also surprisingly has a lot of content for people who prefer to play by themselves. You got the story mode to unlock your characters and it even has a story. Wow. Aeon, the original character from the game, Please Do Not Steal, can see time and all that stuff and he sees there's danger incoming. The Time Reaper will destroy the world and he gotta find a mighty warrior that will be able to stop him. So he summons all the characters from different times and sees who is the strongest one and who has enough power to beat the Time Reaper. After beating the story mode with each character, you now unlock the path to the true ending, where you beat the Time Reaper as the final boss to now truly beat the story mode with your favorite character and send them back to their own time. And I was kinda happy I picked Maria to do that with, cause she can easily cheese the Time Reaper by just dropping turtles on him, and her dodge is pretty neat to dodge these giant lasers too. It's kinda neat to play through the story mode with different characters to be able to see how they interact with each other. It's just one or two lines of dialogue, but still neat for people who are deep in the Castlevania lore. I like Maria's story the most though, because she's obsessed with big boobs. She's just like me. And I like that anime trope where flat-chested girls are really jealous of girls with huge badonkas.
Be one as well.
They're huge.
Will you stop? These things only get in the way.
How can you say that? Those are a sacred gift! Oh my god! Vampire!
Why, hello, sweetie pie. You'll make a nice little appetizer.
Even the vampires are bigger than mine!
Aside from the story mode, you got your typical arcade mode, a survival mode where you just beat as many enemies as you can in a WoW, and the castle mode. The castle mode is a tiny bit like a roguelike, where you can decide your own way through the map, which will lead up to Dracula. There's normal doors and big bossy doors that will unlock things for a character to wear if you beat them. Little doors have winning conditions like Collect 6 items, destroy 4 objects, win against enemies while they're powered up a bit more, activate the stage hazard and things like that. And big bossy doors are basically just like that too, but when you beat those you get a save point you can always come back to and regain health and save. The typical save point stuff. Because when you fail in one of these battles they reset your progress and you're gonna replay those doors again if you die. So why not just always go back to a door, cause sometimes there's ambushes where you wanna go back to a save point but suddenly you have to do another match before you reach it. It's a neat little mode that gets a bit boring after a while though, because the variety of win conditions isn't really that high, so it's gonna be the same thing over and over, just on different stages. Like I said earlier, in this mode you unlock something to wear for your character though after every bossy door, so it's worth it just to see what you're gonna get next. Look at these cute bunny ears or this cute bunny you can pick on your character. At first I thought every character gets their own stuff, but everyone can wear the same things but different characters unlock different things. So if you really want all of the accessories then have fun grinding. Fighting with Maria is now 100% more fun now with these cute ears and the bunny on my shoulder. Yay! Then there was even an online multiplayer that obviously doesn't work anymore nowadays, but as someone who has played Smash Bros. Brawl online on release day back in the day, I don't even want to think about how badly it may have ran. Looking at some of the matches you can find online on YouTube though, it looked to have worked fairly well, but since the servers are offline now, it's a bit pointless to get good at a fighting game like this, that you won't be able to play against others, unless you invite friends over who for some reason really want to play this game instead of Smash or some other fighting game, and then you would most likely smash them against the wall. God, I wish that would happen to me right now. Presentation wise, it's nice looking. Obviously you can't expect too much of a Wii game, but the character models are clean and the stages are okay looking, with some of them having more going on than others. But the real star is the music, but it's to be expected from a Castlevania game, I guess. All the renditions from the older themes are amazing, but is it even possible to fuck up songs like Vampire Killer, Bloody Tears or Slash? No, it isn't, I think. There's so many games with so many versions of these themes that there must at least be one that sucks. Luckily not here though. To a degree, I think people judged Judgment a bit harshly because it's just not what people expected and or wanted, which happens a lot when a franchise is in a bit of a tough spot, which Castlevania wasn't at all actually. The DS and GBA games were very well received, while the 3D games for the PlayStation 2 were nicely received, for the most part. So I guess people finally wanted a 3D game that really puts Castlevania onto a pedestal again, and with the new generation of consoles maybe it was finally the time for it, but then they just gave people Judgment for the Wii, which was the casual or waggle console no hardcore gamer could ever love, which was a dumb thing to think back in the day and also now. Coupled with an art style that seemed unappealing to most established Castlevania fans, and felt like Konami was trying their hardest to appeal to the newly found anime fans that Death Note introduced, instead of making a Castlevania spin-off game for Castlevania lovers. Is it a misjudged masterpiece? Not by a long shot. Is it the worst game ever made? Also not by a long shot. Is it a fairly decent fighting game with a cool aesthetic to people who love weird edgy designs? Yep, it's the kind of game you would expect a Metacritic score of around 70%, but not only 49. But who cares about ratings anyways? Nobody should. So in the end, my opinion is meaningless too. With those wise words, I will leave you alone now and say goodbye. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a nice day, or evening, or whatever time it is for you right now. Subscribe, like the video, blah blah.